the dark chapter of history. How the Roman Empire used young men to expand its lineage. You can feel the iron around your wrists before you see it. The ship's hull groans beneath you, salt air mixing with sweat and fear. Through the wooden slats above, you catch fragments of Latin, sharp, commanding voices discussing cargo. But you are not cargo. You are a son. You had a name, a family, a future. 3 weeks ago you were defending your village. Now you are property, heading toward a city you've only heard of in whispers Rome. The man standing above you, silhouetted against the Mediterranean sun, holds a ledger. He's counting, not coins, people. And beside each mark, he's writing something you cannot yet understand, potential value. Before we descend further into this haunting reality, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? It amazes me that a story buried 2,000 years deep still resonates across every continent, every culture, that connection across time. It never stops humbling me. The year is 146 BCE. The Third Punic War has just ended. Carthage, one of Rome's greatest rivals, lies in ruins, its buildings demolished, its land salted, its people scattered. But Rome's victory is measured not just in territory conquered, it's measured in bodies claimed. 50,000 Carthaginian captives are marched through Roman streets in a single triumph. Among them are thousands of young men, strong, literate, skilled in trades their captors will soon exploit. Roman law is clear and cold. They are now servy slaves, with no legal personhood, no claim to their own futures, and no control over what happens to their bodies or their bloodlines. This is not a story Rome celebrated in its monuments. You will not find it carved into the Colosseum or painted on villa walls. But it is written in legal codes, household ledgers, and the silent archaeological record of countless lives that powered an empire. What Rome did with these young men, how it used their strength, their fertility, their very capacity to create life, reveals a system of control so total, so calculating, that it challenges every romantic notion we hold about classical civilization. This is the story the marble statues do not tell. The journey from battlefield to slave market is a kind of death. You are stripped of your clothing, your weapons, your identity. In the markets of Rome, buyers circle you, examining teeth, muscles, scars. They are assessing durability, work capacity. But for young men in their prime, those between 18 and 30, there is another calculation happening. The lanista, the slave dealer, notes your build, your complexion, your posture. Some buyers are looking for laborers for the mines, where life expectancy is measured in months. But others, representatives of Rome's wealthiest families, are searching for something else entirely. Men who can serve multiple functions within the intricate machinery of a noble household. These representatives are not just buying labor, they are investing in a long-term asset that can increase in value over time through reproduction. The Roman domus, the great household, is not simply a home. It is an economic institution, a political unit, a self-contained world. At its center sits the paterfamilias, the male head of household, who holds patria potestas, a legal power so absolute that ancient writers compared it to the authority of kings. Under Roman law, he owns not just property and money, but people. His wife, though freeborn, is under his authority. His children remain so even into adulthood, and his slaves, numbering anywhere from a handful to hundreds depending on wealth, are entirely at his disposal. Their labor belongs to him. Their children belong to him. Their bodies belong to him. When a young enslaved man enters such a household, he enters a world of carefully calibrated control. He might be assigned to the fields, yes, or to the workshops, but many are brought into the villa itself, into proximity with the family. They become cubiculary bedroom attendants, pedisequi, personal followers. Some are trained as accountants, scribes, or estate managers. This closeness creates a strange intimacy, not affection, but familiarity. The enslaved man sees the private struggles of his owners. He learns their secrets. He witnesses their vulnerabilities. And in some households, he becomes part of their solution to Rome's most pressing aristocratic anxiety, the survival of the family line. Roman society is obsessed with lineage in a way that shapes every institution. A family's status, its political influence, its very survival depends on producing legitimate heirs. But the ancient world is merciless to bloodlines. War claims young men before they can father children. Childbirth kills women and infants with brutal frequency. Disease sweeps through households without warning. Elite Roman families live in constant fear of dying out of their name, their wealth, and their legacy vanishing because they could not produce enough descendants. This fear drives strategy, and strategy, in Rome, often means exploiting those who have no power to resist. Under Roman law, a principle governs all reproduction among the enslaved, partus sequitur ventrum. The child follows the condition of the mother. If an enslaved woman gives birth, her child is enslaved, regardless of who the father is, regardless of circumstances, regardless of anything except the mother's legal status. This law, seemingly simple, becomes the foundation of a system that turns human reproduction into calculated profit. Wealthy Romans begin to see their enslaved populations not just as labor, but as self-replenishing resources. An enslaved woman who bears children increases the household's wealth with each birth, and an enslaved man who can father multiple children becomes, in the cold arithmetic of Roman economics, a valuable breeding asset. Some households keep detailed records. We have fragments of these rations accounting documents that list enslaved people by name, age, skill, and productivity in producing offspring. In some estates, notation appears beside young male slaves, the number of children they've fathered, which women they've been paired with, the survival rate of those children. These are not love stories being recorded. They are investment logs. Marcus, we'll call him this, though his real name is lost, is 19. When he's purchased by a senatorial family in Rome, he is from Gaul, captured during Caesar's campaigns. He is literate, which makes him valuable. But he is also physically robust, which makes him doubly so. For the first year, he works as a scribe, copying documents in the household office. He sleeps in a small room with 3 other enslaved men. He eats the same grain porridge every morning. He has no say in any aspect of his existence. In his second year, something changes. He is approached by the vilica, the slave woman who manages the household's domestic affairs, and told he will be moved to different quarters. He is given better food, new clothing. The dominus, the master of the house, watches him during meals, assessing him in a way that makes Marcus's skin crawl. He does not understand yet what is being planned. Then he is told he will be paired with Lucia, an enslaved woman who works in the household weaving room. This is not a request. This is not courtship. This is an order. The family needs more hands. Lucia is healthy and young. Marcus is strong. The children they produce will belong to the household, will grow up to serve it, will perpetuate the family's wealth. Marcus has no legal right to refuse. Lucia has no legal right to refuse. Their humanity, their desires, their own sense of future. None of it matters in the face of Roman property law. Over the next decade, Lucia bears 5 children. 3 survive infancy. All 3 are raised not by their parents, but by the household system. Marcus sees them occasionally, but he has no authority over their lives, no ability to protect them, no parental rights whatsoever. When Lucia becomes too worn from childbirth to work effectively, Marcus is paired with another woman. Then another. His value in the household ledger increases with each child born, but his own life becomes a succession of losses he is not even permitted to grieve. This system is not accidental. It is not the result of individual cruelty, though cruelty certainly exists within it. It is structural, embedded in Roman law and economics. The children born from these coerced pairings do not simply provide future labor, they serve political functions as well. Some are trained from childhood to be loyal household administrators, so thoroughly shaped by their upbringing that they identify more with their owner's family than with their own origins. These Verni slaves born in the household are sometimes granted privileges, even freed later in life. But their loyalty is cultivated through a lifetime of dependency and control. For elite Roman families, this creates a pool of utterly reliable retainers who can be trusted with sensitive tasks precisely because they have nowhere else to go. Some rise to positions of significant influence, managing estates, conducting business on their owner's behalf, even advising on political matters. Their success is held up as evidence of Roman benevolence. Look, a slave can rise. But it is built on a foundation of exploitation that began before they were born. The bodies of young enslaved men become instruments not just of labor, but of generational strategy. Their ability to father children is commodified, controlled, and extracted for maximum benefit to those who own them. And because these children are legally enslaved from birth, the cycle perpetuates itself across generations. We must pause here and acknowledge what we cannot know. Almost everything we understand about this system comes from the records of the powerful legal texts written by Roman jurists, household accounts kept by property owners, letters between elite families. The enslaved themselves left virtually no written testimony, no memoirs, no private letters, no diaries describing what it felt like to be used this way, to father children you could not protect, to watch your offspring grow up calling someone else master. But their silence in the historical record does not mean they were silent in life. Archaeological evidence reveals acts of resistance, subtle and overt. Some enslaved people damaged tools, slowed work, feigned illness. Some ran away, despite the brutal punishments awaiting recapture, flogging, branding, execution. Some found ways to maintain cultural practices from their homelands, praying to gods Rome did not recognize, teaching their children songs in languages their owners could not understand. And some resisted in the most profound way possible by insisting on their own humanity, even when the law denied it. Funerary inscriptions occasionally reveal enslaved couples who considered themselves married despite having no legal right to marry. Some scraped together money over decades to purchase freedom for a child. Some protected each other in small, uncelebrated acts of courage that left no trace except in the fact that they survived at all. This resistance was not enough to break the system, but it was enough to preserve identity, dignity, and the knowledge that what was being done to them was wrong, even if Rome's laws said otherwise. The great contradiction of Rome is that it celebrated virtue while institutionalizing exploitation. Roman writers praised Pioda's duty to family and gods. They extolled Dignita's personal dignity. They wrote philosophical treatises on justice and natural law. Cicero argued that all humans possess reason and therefore deserve moral consideration. Seneca wrote that slavery was a condition of the body, not the soul, and that masters should treat slaves humanely. Yet these same writers, these same philosophers, owned slaves. They benefited from the system. They recorded the births of enslaved children in their account books, as one might record the birth of livestock. The cognitive dissonance is staggering, but it is not unique to Rome. It is a pattern repeated throughout history whenever a society builds prosperity on the backs of those it refuses to see as fully human. For the young men caught in this system, Rome's philosophical ideals were meaningless. What mattered was the daily reality of control, where you slept, what you ate, who you were ordered to be intimate with, whether you would ever see your children grow up, whether you would die enslaved, or somehow, against all odds, purchase your freedom before your body gave out. As the Roman Empire expanded to its greatest territorial extent, the flow of enslaved people became a flood. Conquest in Dacia, Germania, Britannia, and the East brought hundreds of thousands of captives into Roman lands. The system we've described intensified. Some households maintained enslaved populations numbering in the hundreds. The Ergastula slave barracks on rural estates became notorious for brutal conditions. But even in these large-scale operations, the logic of reproduction remained. An enslaved population that could replenish itself was more valuable than one that had to be constantly replenished through purchase. But empires do not last forever. By the 3rd and 4th centuries CE, Rome's political and economic structures begin to fracture. The constant wars required to maintain the flow of enslaved captives become unsustainable. Economic crises make large enslaved workforces less practical, and new ideologies begin to challenge, however imperfectly, the moral foundations of slavery. Christianity, spreading through the empire, introduces a radical idea that every human soul is equally valuable before God. Early Christian communities include both enslaved and free members worshiping side by side. Paul's letter to Philemon suggests returning a runaway slave not as property, but as a brother. This is not abolition. Christian authorities will continue to tolerate slavery for centuries, but it plants seeds of moral doubt that slowly, painfully slowly, begin to erode the absolute certainty with which Rome once commodified human life. By the time the Western Roman Empire collapses in the 5th century, the system of household slavery based on controlled reproduction has already begun to transform into different forms of unfreedom, serfdom, debt, bondage, feudal obligation. The specifics change, but the underlying logic that some human lives can be owned, controlled, and used for the benefit of others persists in new forms. In the ruins of a Roman villa in North Africa, archaeologists found something unexpected. A small clay figurine, crudely made, depicting a man holding a child. It was found in what was once the slave quarters. There is no inscription, no way to know who made it or what it meant. But its existence is a whisper across millennia. Someone, perhaps a young man, forced into the system we've described, carved a moment of tenderness into clay. Someone insisted, in the only way available to them, that they were not just a tool, that they were a father, that their love mattered, even if Roman law said it didn't. The figurine survives. The names do not. We do not know who held it, who is depicted, what happened to them. But we know they lived. We know they resisted erasure. We know that beneath the grand narrative of Roman civilization, the aqueducts and roads, the literature and law, there were countless individual human stories of pain, resilience, and a stubborn refusal to be reduced to mere function. Rome built an empire that lasted centuries and shaped the entire trajectory of Western civilization. Its legal concepts still influence modern law. Its architectural innovations still inspire. Its literature is still studied. But its grandeur was built, in part, on a system that treated human beings as renewable resources, that controlled reproduction as coldly as it controlled labor, that turned the most intimate aspects of life into tools of economic and political strategy. The story of how Rome used young men to expand its lineage is not ancient history in the sense of being safely distant. It is a reminder that every civilization, no matter how sophisticated, is capable of profound moral blindness when its prosperity depends on that blindness. It is a reminder that legal systems can be used to legitimize cruelty. It is a reminder that behind every empire's glory stand people whose suffering made that glory possible. We remember Rome for its achievements, but we must also remember it for this: for the young men torn from their homelands, for the children born into bondage, for the generations of people whose names were never carved into monuments, but whose lives, whose labor, whose bodies built the world, those monuments celebrated. They did not consent. They were not volunteers. They were not the beneficiaries of the civilization they helped create, but they were there in every household, on every estate, in every corner of an empire that could not have existed without them. History is not only written by the victors. Sometimes, if we look carefully enough at the fragments they left behind, the legal codes, the household accounts, the small clay figurine in a forgotten corner, we can glimpse the people history tried to forget. And in remembering them, we honor a truth more important than any empire's myth about itself, that every human life carries a weight that no law can diminish. That dignity persists even where it is not recognized, and that the stories we do not tell are often the ones that matter most.